Welcome to Real Talk with Reginald D. On today's episode, I had Jacki Semerau Tait, a top-producing realtor, acclaimed real estate agent coach, a motivational speaker, and known as the queen of relational real estate. Welcome to the show, Jacki.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join you today.
Thank you so much. I am excited myself. So, Jacki, tell us a little bit about your life growing up.
Oh, growing up, I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, Elgin, Illinois. My dad was a blue-collar worker. He was an aircraft mechanic for American Airlines. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I am the baby of 3 kids. So I was a little spoiled.
Yeah, I bet you were. So,
I mean, as much as here's the thing. My brother and sister are 9 and 11 years older than me. And so I think that when I came along, my parents were older, wiser, and tired. So, I think I maybe got away with a little bit more because of that. But no, I mean, honestly, I had a very ideal childhood, I think. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but I didn't know that. I just grew up in an environment of love and support. And so I really appreciate that.
so I was reading your story and it blew me away. So can you tell us about the $4 story? That is the thing I've been waiting on.
I can. So basically, where it all started is I've been in the real estate industry since 2002. And when we hit the Great Recession, it really hit me. I lost pretty much everything, ended up having to short sale my house, pack up my kids, my things. I moved in with my parents as a single mom at the time. And I truly thought it would be, just a few short months. And then I would be back up on my feet, no problem. But it was the Great Recession and times were tough. I ended up living with my parents for 2.5 years. My background prior to being in real estate, I was in marketing and advertising. So I kind of dusted that off. I worked with some small businesses to help them with their marketing. So I was out there doing the work, but here's the flaw in the program, if you will, is that they were having hard times as well. So by the time I would finish and get a bill over to some of the different companies I was working with, I was kind of the last priority to get paid. And so I was in this position where I'd been working my tail off, and yet the money hadn't come in. And this one morning in particular, I woke up to see that my bank account had gone down to 0. Another bank account was overdrawn. And I looked into my purse and my wallet and I had 4 single-dollar bills. And in that moment, it hit me. And I thought, this is all I have to my name right now. And really, I was overdrawn. So technically, that $4 shouldn't have even belonged to me, but it was cash. They couldn't get it. And it was such a low point. And I just remember the feeling of despair of saying, I'm doing the work. I've got things out there. And yet, for some reason, God has allowed me to get down to this point. And so I really did have a little breakdown in that moment. But I had to pull my stuff together because, number one, I'm a single mom. And you don't have the luxury of wallowing in yourself, because if you don't make it happen, nobody else will. And so I had to get up, get going. That day I had a network meeting, was a referral partner within like a BNI group, if you're familiar, Business Networking International. And so he had a referral for me and I needed it. So we get together and we meet at a Starbucks where I get water because there's no way I'm spending my last $4 on an expensive cup of coffee. And we sit down and he says to me, all right, what gives? I could tell you're not yourself. And I tend to hold my cards close to my chest. And I was not letting people in on how difficult life was for me in that moment. But whatever it was about that, I really just couldn't hold it in. I didn't tell him the whole story, but I did tell him a shortened story about where I found myself that morning. And he said, you know what? I am going to help you out. He reached into his wallet and gave me $300. And at the time, my kids were just about to start school. The school they had been in previously, they wore uniforms. And so now they were going to go to a public school where they got to wear their own clothes. But I didn't have the money to buy them any school clothes at the time. So that $300 for me represented the ability to provide for my kids, to send them off to school and some new clothes. And I remember telling my friend at the time, I will pay you back. And he said, I don't want you to pay me back. I want you to pay it forward. And so in that moment, getting a little bit of that lifeline, you ever watch that movie with Will Smith, The Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that scene where he's trying to sell these medical devices and he sells one and he gets the money and he looks at the money and says, to me, this was 6 weeks of oxygen. And that's how I felt when that friend lent me the $300. I felt like there's oxygen. And so that was one of the catalysts that helped me get through this period of time. The good news is within the next couple of weeks, I did have some of the invoices that were out due. They came in paid. And then I also was able to connect with some other opportunities in the meantime as well. So, but this $4 story really happened right in the middle of when I was living with my parents, trying to get back up on my feet. So it took some time and effort and energy, but that day was the catalyst to me knowing I needed to shift my mindset. I needed to shift my focus. And also I needed to admit that I needed other people to help me through that time.
And the thing about it, you mentioned one word that was powerful in what you said. You said God. When you think about God, his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts, but he has a way that my grandfather always said, God has a way that's mighty sweet.
Grandfather sounds like a wise man.
He was. So Jacki, let's talk about your real estate career.
Sure. In real estate, like I said, I got started in 2002. And throughout the course of my career, I started as a real estate agent. I went to work at the corporate offices for a Fortune 150 title company. And then when I was doing this marketing, as I was getting back up on my feet, one of the opportunities I had was to help a mortgage company with their realtor clients and help them with their marketing. And then I came back around full circle and went back into being a real estate agent myself. So I do have to say, one of the reasons I'm sharing this $4 story is because I had known success early on in my career. And when I hit the bottom, like I mentioned, I had to shift my mindset. I can honestly look back and say, in the beginning of my career, I was a paycheck player. I was there for the transaction. I was there for, hey, we're going to provide, mama's got to bring home the bacon kind of thing. And after going through this, I had to really reevaluate, why do I do what I do? And I show up so much different for my clients now and for the agents that I coach and the agents that are on my team, because now I really do look at it. I am blessed to serve other people in their moment of need when they need somebody to guide them through the difficult task of buying or selling real estate. I get to come alongside of them and help them accomplish whatever it is their dreams and goals are. So I get the opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives. And so that's what drives me now. It brings the juice for me in my world. And so, yeah, I look at it and go, yeah, in the beginning of my career, I did good. I would have said I was successful, but now it's just a whole nother level of success. And I do believe that when you give yourself over to what God has planned in front of you and you show up to serve others, not to come from a place of ego or pride, I do believe that God blesses you tenfold.
Absolutely. I am a living witness to that. All the companies I work for and the leadership and the packing up and moving from city to city, trying to run facility and things like that. People have all walks of life, but at the end of the day, as a leader, you have to understand you're not a boss. You're a servant. I remember one time we had a office that was in another state and they was going to do a divestiture with another company. And I had two guys in management that I told a story to, was like, hey, we're about to shut this place down. And one guy said, what about me? And I said, well, we'll get to that, And our company, they kept us whole. We just relocated to other places. But He said, what about me? And then I talked to the other guy, one-on-one, the other manager, and he said, man, what about the people? What's going to happen to them? And that's the difference right there all day long. He wasn't worried about him. He was worried about the people. At the end of the day, we made everybody whole. Everybody was great. But that stood out to me all my life, not to think about it. And it's great that you understand where you are. You understand your place where God has you. And I think it's very important for people to understand that. That's the only way you're going to grow and go to the next level.
Absolutely true. And that's the thing, when you get down to the end of yourself and you are willing to sit in a place of surrender, sometimes that's the most powerful place you can be. And that's one of the messages through my $4 story that I really want to impart upon others is to say, when we start to go through hardships, we tend to fight against them. We want to control it. We want to do everything we can to get ourselves out of that hardship. But then you got to look at it and say, well, what if? What if this time in my life is something that God wants to use for his glory? What if this time in my life is something that is being used to get me out of my own way? Because sometimes without the hardships, we're so busy being comfortable, we don't see opportunities that are right in front of us that could actually lead us to whatever, I believe there's greatness inside of each and every person that God has placed there. And part of our role here on this planet is to connect with that and figure out, well, what are you here for? What is the greatness God put inside of you? And to step into that. And without hardship, sometimes we don't even see it.
Exactly. So, Jacki, how do you help people become the best version of themselves? What are some of the things that you do, or a couple of things that you do?
That's a good question. I will tell you that through my $4 story, I looked back and really evaluated it and found 7 things that I learned through that story that helped me to connect with my highest purpose in what I'm doing here on this planet. And so I share that with other people. So, for example, one of the steps is to look for the helpers. That's a line that Mr. Rogers used to use. Remember Mr. Rogers and the sweater and the shoes, and he'd take them off. But he used to say, look for the helpers, because helpers are all around us. And I think that in our society right now, we are misled to think that we have to do everything by ourselves. We got to be it all. We got to do it all. We can't reach out to others. And we certainly can't admit our weaknesses or the faults that we have. But when we look for the helpers, we are admitting that we're not put here to be completely self-sufficient. We're here to almost as a symbiotic relationship with those around us, that your weaknesses may exist to help somebody else step into their strength, and vice versa. So when we can admit we need help and we find somebody who has the strength that is not ours, we are actually helping them live their highest purpose. And by default, now we have released part of our burden that we are able to step into our strengths even stronger. Well, that's just one example. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember one time I got sent to this facility, and it was like one of the ones that was struggling, and they was going through leadership left and right. My CEO actually reached out to me and wanted me to go down there. They asked me like 3 times. I was like, man, I don't know what's going on down there. I'm going to pack up my life in another state and get canned, get fired. Because everybody else was getting terminated for whatever reason. And I went there and I noticed something. I asked him, I said, don't send anybody else from any other location to come here be leadership with me. I said, I see it in the people here. So I promoted within, and they were nervous about it. They was like, man, we don't want to do this. We're going to get fired for this. I was like, no, man, you're already doing the job. Let me pay you.
Nice.
And after I did that, everything started coming together. They felt better about themselves. The people who they've been working with all these years, they was behind them 100%. And I think about a year later, my CEO called. He said, Reg, he said, I want to ask you one question. And I was like, what is that? He said, are these numbers right? And I was like, yeah. He said, what did you do?
Wow.
I said, I used the people that was here, that was dedicated. And I said, if you lead them, they'll play for you.
Oh, that is such a powerful story. I love that. I love that. Like, look at the difference. Like, you're dropping the bucket, right? Like, you put the drop in the bucket and then the ripple effect. Like, the drop
Yeah.
in the bucket is you saw the greatness in those people and you elevated them to a place where they saw it in themselves and they showed up to play. That's awesome.
It was very rewarding for me. So, Jacki, tell the listeners, how do you turn life challenges into stepping stones to fulfill your purpose?
So the first thing is kind of like what I said before, where you have to see the circumstance as maybe something that is necessary, not something that is a stumbling block. So I think a lot of times what happens is we put our little blinders on and we get into the victim mentality and we think, oh, woe is me. And listen, I'm not saying it's not hard because it is. I'm not saying like, oh, just sail through it, show up with a little bubbly attitude and know everything is going to be just fine. Like, no. That's not at all what I'm saying. But sometimes circumstances that seem disastrous at the time are the very thing you need to get you out of your own way and step into that higher purpose. So go ahead and feel the feels. Feel how hard it is. Like I said, I had a little breakdown to do what I call the 30-minute breakdown, which is where I would allow myself, woe is me for 30 minutes. I would cry. I would yell at God, whatever I needed to do to get it out of my system. And I kid you not, I would literally set a timer. And then when that timer went off and at 30 minutes was over, it was like, all right, you done with that? Now let's go. What's next? How do we move on? So I'm not saying that you don't feel the feeling and own how hard it is, but if you can shift your perspective from being stuck there and shift the perspective to look up and go, okay, what's on the horizon? What is out there? What do I want my life to look like in 1 year, 5 years, whatever the case may be? Knowing that whatever it is you're going through right now, that it's just a stepping stone to get you there. So you got to be able to look up and see the vision of your future and where you want that to be. And when you can do that, you can backtrack into it and say, okay, here's where I am now. Here's the vision of my future. What's the next step that I need to take? And then the next step, and then the next step to get me to where that vision is. But you got to hold that vision up in front of you and know that what you're going through right now, while it is hard, it is possibly exactly what you need to get you there.
Absolutely. Because my biggest thing, and a lot of people know me even when I'm a motivational speaker or doing a podcast, they hear the word, don't quit. Don't quit. I know it's tough and all these things is going on, but there's a process to this whole thing. You just got to work the process. You got to work the process and you got to say, I got to win at the end of the day. I must win. You won't take it no other way.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? There's no not showing up. And there's nobody that's ready, willing, and able to hand that to you. Now, and that's a difference between, yes, there are helpers along the way who can help you. They can give you their hand and help you get up to the next level. But nobody's out there wanting to do it for you and just hand it over and say, here's the keys to the kingdom, go. No, you got to work to get the keys to the kingdom. You got to go and say, this is where I want to be. So here's what I need to do to get there. Don't quit.
Absolutely. And you may have the keys and it may not unlock one door, but it will unlock the door once you keep going and find the right one to go.
That's right.
Jacki, you are a very authentic person. I can feel that. So what would you say about somebody that's embracing their authentic self and trying to get the world who they truly are?
Oh, that is such a good question. So first of all, thank you. And I feel that in you too. Just authenticity has to be something that reigns in your life. But here's what I really want to say about that is that right now we've got this message out there that you're supposed to be authentic and transparent. And I think that some people are misunderstanding that as almost a permission to act badly, permission to behave as the lowest version of who they are. And I just want to encourage people listening that that is not authenticity. Authenticity isn't just going, well, I'm going to say this, I'm going to do that. And you know what? I don't care if you like it or not, because this is just who I am. No. Here's what true authenticity is. It's being on the journey. We're here for a reason, and it is not to just fall into the base level of the worst of our humanity. We're here to really step into who we are, who's the best version of ourselves. So being authentic in that journey is showing like, hey, I'm overcoming things. I'm trying to do better day by day. If I can just do a little bit better tomorrow than I did today, then I'm winning the day. And so I think that's part of being authentic. It's not saying I'm perfect and look at me, but it's also not saying I'm not perfect and so what? You're going to love it and own it. And if you don't like it, too bad. It's neither of those things. There's that middle thing where you're just walking down the journey and you can show people the reality of your journey. You don't have to just be all up in your highlight reels. Show people there's ups, there's downs, and that's okay. You got emotions, you feel it. That's fine. But that you're striving to do your best. I think that's the key to authenticity.
That's it. Absolutely. That's it. I never broke down like that, but that is it all day. So let's talk about real estate agents. What is one of the important habits for a real estate agent that can be used in other sales and sales type professions?
This is such a loaded question. And I will tell you that the answer is easy, or it's simple, but it's not easy. The simplistic answer to this is that you got to show up consistently. You consistently have to do the work. And I will tell you that in sales, the work is contacting people. You've got to pick up the phone. You have to get voice on voice with people. I'm sorry. I know right now everybody wants to say, oh, but nobody wants you to call them. They don't want to answer the phone. But I would suggest to you that ever since our lockdowns with COVID in 2020, people are starved for true human connection. And so while it's easier to text, it's more authentic to call. And while it's authentic to call, it's more meaningful if that call can lead to a face-to-face appointment. Now, remember, face-to-face depends on your market and what you're doing. That could mean literally being physically in the same place, grabbing coffee together or what have you. Or it could be meeting somebody via Zoom where, hey, I can see you, you can see me. We can get a sense of who each other is and what our intention is. And people can see that you genuinely care to help them. That is going to be a habit. So I'm sorry to say it, but you've got to pick up the phone. You've got to call the people in your database and you have to try and connect with them and create those opportunities for appointments.
Yeah, because I always say I ran companies where I had a sales team and operations team, maintenance team, but the sales team, I think, is the hardest grinders that's out there. Because you're talking about competition, you're talking about other people trying to get this and things like that. And I always tell people the way I look at sales is that if you lose, the next person outworks you at the end of the day. I think because you got to grind when you in sales. And I tell people that is not for everybody. That's not for me. Jacki, I understand. I understand how it works and how it flows. I understand all the bottom line. I understand all of that. That is not me. You got to be a special person, I believe, anyway.
I think you do. And I think the other thing that I really do encourage, so that's one of the habits is literally you got to just get in your database every day. You got to make a certain number of calls. And that's one of the things that in our coaching program, I help people uncover what that looks like, get to a process where they're okay with it. We talk about certain things that you can say to help get you out of your own head and make the other person on the other side of the phone feel at ease. But that's the number one habit is just getting there. But also, I love what you said that you're like, listen, it's not for everybody. But if you're a salesperson, no matter real estate or anything, one thing I want to encourage you with is you have a specific set of skills. You're like Liam Neeson. I have a very specific set of skills. And you have a knowledge and an expertise that can help the person who's on the other end of that phone. So if you approach these phone calls and the habits that you need to do on a daily basis, if you approach that understanding, hey, I'm here to help. It's my job to help you understand that I can help. And if you approach it from that direction, it's not about, hey, gimme, and what can you do for me from a sales perspective, but rather, if I connect with you, how can I help you? How can I serve you by using my knowledge and expertise? So if you approach it with that mindset, changes the game.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I hope that helps some listeners that's in sales, because I've seen a lot of people in sales get deflated, man. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's build this pipeline. Let's do this. I mean, it's work. It's a lot of work. I really appreciate it. I tell people, like I said, it's not for me. Now, I can put y'all in a room and I can motivational speak and have you ready to run through a wall, but I'm not going to be the one out there doing it. You don't want me out. Yeah.
I love it. See, you're using your strengths to help other people improve their strengths, but you're willing to say, I know my weakness and I'm not going to do what you do. I love it.
That's it. So, Jacki, can you share some positive habits that people should do in their life?
Oh, yeah. Good question. First and foremost, I want to encourage your listeners that if they do not currently have a personal relationship with God, that is going to be the number one thing that you can do to really have a positive life experience right here, right now. Also, another thing is to live in gratitude. Now, I know we hear this and we think, oh, this almost sounds cliche, but I can go back to a point in my early 20s where I was in an abusive relationship. The sad story doesn't matter. Just know that it was not a good time in my life. And I was living the victimhood mentality. And I actually read in the Bible where it says to thank God in all things. And I went, no way. I got nothing to be thankful for. But I took it to heart and I said, okay, God, you want me to be thankful? You want me to be grateful? Fine. So I would wake up in the morning and I remember waking up, looking out the window and seeing the sky and laying there going, I have nothing to be grateful for. So I go, okay, God, thank you that the sky is blue. Thank you that I woke up today. And let me tell you something, having that practice of gratitude began to shift my mindset to where, all right, I'm looking for more things to be grateful for than just that I woke up and the sky is blue. And before you knew it, I had just shifted so much of my attitude because I was looking for ways and things to be grateful for. So I know we hear it all the time and it sounds like a bit of a platitude anymore, but I can't express enough the power of living in gratitude on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely. That's touching. I was at a low point one time, Jackie, and I was contemplating suicide. And I had the date and the time that I was going to do it. And I was like, I don't have anything to live for. I believed in it, but I didn't understand why I was in the predicament I was in. And I laid down one day on the couch, and that was the day before I was going to commit suicide. And I laid down on the couch. I fell into a deep sleep, like out of nowhere. And I had trouble sleeping. I had all this anxiety. I had all this stuff. And I woke up and I felt so different. And I went in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I heard God's voice that said, you can't do this to yourself. He said, what about the multitude of people I need you to speak to? What are they going to do if you do this to yourself? And I'm like, wow. And it just calmed me to a place, and it took me to a whole nother place, and I had gratitude for it. And now the podcast is ranking top 1% and it ranking 87 countries now. The people listening to me, and all the things, ways of life I'm trying to teach. So it's like, man, if I'd have did that, man, it'd have been devastating.
Man, you would have robbed the world of the gift that is you.
Wow.
And that is a powerful story. Man, thank you for sharing that. You got me all up in my feels right there. That's real talk. I mean, seriously, that's real talk. Real talk with Reginald D. There it is right there. But yeah, that is powerful.
Yeah. And like I say, if you don't have a relationship with God, man, whoever, please get one because you never know what you're going to need that.
Amen.
So, Jackie, you've been working with Les Brown.
Yes.
Okay, how was that like? I listened to Les, I think a while back, I think I was just listening to motivational speakers. I kept hearing his voice and this guy talk. I'm like, I like this guy. And then I found out Les Brown, okay, Les Brown is really the big deal. So how is it working with Les? What are y'all up to?
Oh my gosh. Well, first and foremost, I will tell you that the way I got to work with Les was such an amazing thing. So when I was in the midst of my $4 story, I had a friend who was at a conference and heard Les Brown, and she bought his CD set, 6 CDs called Choosing Your Future. And she came home and she lent me that. She goes, listen, I know you need this right now. And so I would listen to Les Brown, and that was a huge part of me shifting my mindset. And if you haven't listened to Choosing Your Future, you can buy it on Audible. It changed my life. So fast forward, this was in 2008, 2009. Fast forward to 2021, January of 2021. And I had the opportunity to actually mentor with him. And the way I connected with him was on Clubhouse. I don't know if you've ever been on that app, but it was on Clubhouse. And I saw that Les Brown was doing it. And I said, this can't be the Les Brown. And it was. So I connected with him. I got to personally mentor with him with another small group of other people for 2021. I co-wrote a book with him called Ignite the Hunger in You. And I got to speak with him on stage at one of the only live events he did during that whole COVID thing. For like 3 years, he only did one live event, and I got to be with him in that. And it was phenomenal. You know, sometimes you hear that you should never meet your heroes. I'm very happy to say that was not my experience. It was amazing. We became like family, this small group of people led by Les Brown, and it really did become life-changing.
Man, I think that's a great experience.
Yeah, once in a lifetime, and I'm so grateful for it.
So, Jackie, I feel that everyone has a $4 story in their life. What would you share with the listeners who may be in that position right now, down to their last $4 and don't know what to do?
So you are correct. Everybody has a $4 story, and sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with money. Sometimes it has to do with relationships, depression, victim mentality, whatever the case may be. The first thing that I want to share is to know that if you allow it to be used for the greater purpose, it will be. So it's okay to feel it. It's okay to go through it. You don't have to ignore it and pretend like everything is awesome when it's not. But to know that this is going to serve your greater story. So if you can, take yourself out of it for just a minute, where you can almost like look up at it from a 10,000 foot view, and you look down. Because I think when we're in the midst of our $4 story, it is really easy to be so bogged down in the details that you can't see above and beyond. But if you can extract yourself from it a little bit and look at this and go, okay, I see that this is happening. Now, what can I do to make a positive impact, one small step at a time? You don't have to solve the problem. Life is not about getting out of pain, even though I think our society, through marketing and advertising and all the news and all the everything, they teach us like, oh, you got to be safe and secure and just no pain. Like, we'll just put you in a little bubble and you be all right. No. It's okay that you're not in the little bubble right now. Go through this because it makes you stronger. So whatever you're going through right now, I want to encourage you. This is just serving to make you a stronger person so you can show up. Just like the story you just shared with us about how if you would have given into your darkest moment, look at all of the good that would not have come out of the rest of your life. So if you're in this darkest moment right now, know that there's good to come out of it, but you have to hang in there. You have to look for ways out, look for people to help you. And above all else, if you can surrender to God and say, you know what, God, it's not what I want, it's what you want. And know that that's the way to go forward. There's strength in surrender because you're not fighting against the powers that be around you anymore, trying to bend everything to your will. When you go, okay, I'm going to ride this wave. I'm going to see how this works out. And you ride the wave through it. You'd be surprised at the direction it takes you. And sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised. So that's the best thing I can say is to reach in, surrender to the process, and know that this is for a greater purpose.
Wow, Jacki. Wow. You are awesome. You are awesome.
Thank you. I think you are too. I was so excited to meet with you today because I was like, oh, he's got it. He's bringing it. I love it.
Thank you so much. Jacki, how can people follow you on social media?
You know, the best way to follow me on social media, if you go to, well, first and foremost, if you go to like Instagram or YouTube and you even get close to spelling my name right, you'll find me. I mean, Jacki Semerau Tait, and I don't spell Jackie the way you think, and I don't spell Tate the way you think, and Semerau, who knows how to spell. But I promise if you give it a good guess, you'll find me. But if you want the shortcut, just go to stepstostrength.com and you're going to find everything there. You get my social media links. You get links to the books I've written. And most importantly, too, I also give away an audio download called The $4 Story. And it's really all about the 7 things I learned during that period of time. I give that away to you because I know somebody out there might be struggling to connect with their higher purpose. And so if you download that, it's about a 30-minute audio, and I give you my 7 steps there. So you find all that at stepstostrength.com.
Jacki, thank you so much. And I want everybody to know that the link to her $4 story will be in the show notes. Jacki, thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me. I could do this all night with you. I'm telling you.
I know. I was like, I am so enjoying this conversation. You're awesome. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. And thank you for having your podcast because I think you make a difference. I've listened to some of your stuff and even your little 5-minute motivational segments. I think it's awesome. So thank you so much for including me on the process.
Well, I will be in touch with you again. Trust me.
Love it.
Thanks for tuning in to Real Talk with Reginald D. If you enjoyed the show, please share with anyone you feel that needs to take this journey with us on being a better you. See you next time.